Good afternoon. Welcome to Tulsa City County Library's Tools for Building Business series. I'm Martha Gregory with the library's Research Center. Before we start, we want you to know that this event is being recorded, and our program today is Customer Prospecting Opportunities. This is the first of 3 sessions of this series, and the full series is currently displayed on your screen. Recordings of all 3 of them will be available for you to access on the library's YouTube channel after the series is completed. All participants except the speakers are in listen-only mode, and we will use Zoom's chat for asking questions and getting answers. So please submit your questions as you think of them, and to do so, click on chat at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Questions will be answered periodically throughout the presentation. And speaking of questions, here is a question for you to make note of right now from our key speaker, who's Bill Carlson. I'll be introducing him in a moment. And he is challenging you with this question to consider during his presentation. If you are the first person to get the right answer to this question, you will get a $20 gift certificate to Starbucks. And so email your answer to Bill, Bill Carlson at data-axle.com. The address is down there in the bottom. And the question is, in the U.S. Businesses module of the database using the search primary Sic Code, standard industrial classification code only, how many verified veterinarians are there in Tulsa County? We're going to leave that slide up for a couple of minutes here so that you can take note of that and digest that before we do our so that you'll be ready for it when the presentation starts. Bill is with Data Axle Reference Solutions. Their databases are among our most popular, and they were formerly known as Reference USA, which some of you may be familiar with, as we've had them on our website for a long time. But it's now called Data Axle Reference Solutions. And like most of our databases, it's on the library's website, available 24/7 from any place, anytime, and free to library card holders. If you want to get a card, just visit the library's website and you can order a free card online. You only have to work in, be a student in, or live in Tulsa County to qualify. Reference Solutions is a heavyweight. Its group of databases has something for everyone. Collectively, these databases cover nearly every household and every establishment, regardless of kind, profit and nonprofit, schools, government, et cetera, virtually every address in the United States and Canada. We're very pleased to have Bill Carlson from Data Axle in Omaha, Nebraska, to showcase Reference Solutions to us today. Bill has been with the company since 2008, and during those years, he has worked with public libraries all over the country, teaching their customers how to use their databases. So Bill will now show us how to explore reference solutions to find great customer prospecting opportunities. Bill?
Thank you, Martha, and thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. I'm going to share my screen here so we can explain exactly what I'm referring to regarding these various database modules that are all made available to you through the Tulsa City County Library system. Some great information, as you'll note here. We have an entire suite of various modules that you can access through the database. So certainly most popular, or one of the most popular, would be the U.S. Business Database. I'll show you how that functions, and as well as our consumer lifestyles information. And what's nice about all of these, they search the same way. Different criteria, of course, but the processes for searching are the same no matter which of these modules you may have chosen to go into. And with that said, let me share, we do offer webinars here, so you can certainly attend. If you wanted to attend another webinar, you could certainly do so, or perhaps you want to tell a colleague or a friend about the access to the database. They could certainly attend our webinar as long as they have access through the Tulsa City County Library. We also have under the Learning Center, and I'll open that tab real quick here. We do have our contact us information. You can always feel free to reach out to the library itself. But if you would like to speak to us, that is certainly perfectly okay as well. So we have our contact information here. We respond to calls and or emails that may come in Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So if it's after hours or on the weekend, we'll certainly get back to you that next business day. And since we're here, I do want to show you under the marketing and training material, we have these database overviews. So there's one for each of our modules here. Then we have our data dictionary for business and for consumer data. So if you had a question about a certain field in the database, you could use that to get that answered. Know that you can take advantage of that information. You could print that off if you'd like to. You could have that open on another tab. Just depends on how you would like to perhaps use that. And I'm going to go back to my dashboard here. Now, I can honestly say I've never seen this particular list before. Martha, does this look familiar to you? I think I'll just close that and come right back this way. That's easier to do it that way. So with the database modules, we also give you the ability to download our app. There's no cost for this. When you go to launch that app, it'll ask you to put in your zip code. It'll then present to you a listing of libraries in the area, and then you would be able to click on the one that's yours and put in your library card number to get access. We also, last but not least, we do give you the ability to save your queries. So if you had a search that you thought, gosh, I want to be able to come back to that at some point in time, you can certainly register for a personal account and then log in and save virtually any information from these modules except for the jobs and internships. With this one, you can email yourself results, but you can't save that on the personalized account. All these other ones, absolutely, save away. In fact, speaking of saving, oftentimes I get asked the question, well, how often is this information updated? So we still, to this very day, and we're almost 50 years old, we still use phone books. They send phone books to us nowadays digitally, thank goodness. And we bump that digital information up against our current database. Anything that is considered a duplicate would get rejected. And anything that's a new business that we did not have in our universe would get accepted. And then we begin a calling campaign. And we call those businesses annually to verify information like, of course, the name of the business, but as well, address. Since they answered the phone, we know that that phone number is correct, but we also go on to capture number of employees that they have. And about 72% of the businesses will give us an actual number of employees. Those that don't, we look at their peers and we then apply a range. So that range might be 1 to 4, or 5 to 9, 10 to 19, something like that. We'll update that information and we push all those updates live every Thursday into Friday morning. So this is being updated once a week, whereas our US historical businesses, this is technically being updated at the beginning of each new year. Our Canadian information, updated monthly. Our jobs and internships. This is a relationship that we have with Indeed.com. This information is being updated every day. US new business filing. So when a business registers, we're capturing that information through the Secretary of State's office and making that available and updating it once a week. our US healthcare, our standard white pages, our consumer lifestyles, and our Canadian white pages. That information is all being updated monthly. And last but not certainly at all least would be the US new movers, new homeowners. We're capturing that information from our relationship with the United States Postal Service's national change of address. So that card that people fill out to say, hey, I've moved from address A and I'm going to address B. We're capturing that information and updating that weekly in our US New Movers, New Homeowners. Those records will remain in this universe for 1 year. So let's go ahead and I'll open the US business database. This is definitely something, obviously I could study competition if I needed to. I could put together perhaps a marketing plan. Maybe I'm going to look at my community and I'm going to put it in different segments, whether those are boundaries that we're familiar with, like zip codes, etc. Or maybe I want to make my own boundaries. We give you that ability, and then you can start your campaign as it relates to perhaps getting the word out about a product or service that you offer. Maybe you're a new location and you want to let people know, hey, I'm at this address. You could certainly do that, and you could do that by those areas that you've defined. So certainly another great use for the database. Perhaps you're just trying to understand some costs as it relates to doing business in that community with a specific type of business. You could certainly do that. So there are lots of different ways that you can look at the information in the database and utilize that. So I'll launch the US Business Database module. No matter which module I've come into, I'm always going to be brought to this quick search tab first. So I could do a company name search if I wanted to. I could look for an executive. Maybe there was an executive that you had a great working relationship with, and that person has moved. You learned about it secondhand, but you're not certain where they've gotten off to. You could certainly try that executive first name, last name search. Hopefully you'll know that city or state at least that they're in to help narrow that funnel, right? If the last name is Smith, might be a lot of executives by the name of Smith, but if you could name that city and state, might help you find that person a little easier. We can always look at businesses in any given city or state and even do a reverse phone number lookup. I do want to show you one tool, and this tool is certainly available in the US Business Database, but it's also available in many of our others. I'll just use your community, for example. So I'll select Tulsa, and then, of course, the state of Oklahoma. Come on, I know you're there. I'm going to view those results, and the system will only give me results for verified business records that we have in our universe. So I'm going to select view those results. I'm telling the system, hey, I want to see this information. My goodness, Tulsa has over 30,000 businesses across the city. The tool I want to show you is this charts tool. It's one thing to say, gosh, you've got 30,000 plus businesses, but what kind of businesses are they? I can learn that using the charts. Martha had mentioned early on that we use the SIC codes. That's the Standard Industrial Classification Code. You may also be familiar with the NAICS codes. We certainly have those in each of our records as well. The SIC codes were or have been technically retired in place of the NAICS codes. We have kept these alive because so many of our customers want to use them, but we also know a lot of government agencies are only allowed to use the NAICS codes. So that's why we have both of those records available. If I look at, in this case, the top 7 SICs across your community, the very first one are physicians and surgeons. And the reason you see so many, and this is true for most communities of any size, The reason you see so many of them is because they're all 1099 guys and gals, right? So that's why you're seeing that 3,400, followed by attorneys in this case, restaurants, nurse practitioners, insurance, churches, and dentists. If we were looking at the same report from the perspective of my community, Omaha, Nebraska, in this position of number 7 would be ATM machines. And I mention that only to provide you with the insight that you can choose, and we'll see that in when we go to our advanced search tab, you could choose to omit certain types of businesses if you did not want to see them in your output. Also, if I scroll down, I see a full report. So I have 122 pages of SIC codes, those primary SIC codes, with their description, and then how many records apply. So for example, maybe you had a business and you wanted to sell a product to beauty salons. We're just looking at Tulsa. We could look at the entire state, but we're just looking at Tulsa. So I want to see just this universe. I can click on that 271 and I'll have those results. There they are. So know that you can use that to get to information that's really important to you. I'm going to go back to my list here. I do want to change this up. Notice I can do NAICS. That's the North American Industrial Classification System code. Say that 3 times really fast. Wow. I want to switch this up and get a look at this entire community from an employment size standpoint. So when I select that, it gives me this breakdown in these ranges. So at nearly 60%, there are 15,000 plus businesses that employ at least 1 to 4 employees. Another nearly 20% that employ 5 to 9 and 10 to 19. You get the idea. It will then give you some of those larger employers in the area along with that breakdown by employment size. So know that you can get to that level of data as well. And I'll show you this chart in another example, but let's return to my results. And we obtained all of this information really just by entering in the name of the city and selecting the state. And that was it, right? So let's go to advanced search. And by the way, additional filters also goes to advanced search. This allows me to craft my search a little bit more, define it a little bit more so that I'm only seeing what's important to me. I do want to point out on this left-hand column, for example, we've got company name. Remember, I also had company name under quick search, but I could only look up one company at a time under quick search. This allows me to select that and then look up multiple companies by name if that were important to me. So if I wanted IBM, I could certainly add that. If I wanted Starbucks, which I always want a Starbucks, I could add that. And I could then see, based on whatever geography I've selected, those particular business records. Otherwise, we'll always give you the company name. We'll always give you this executive information. Perhaps you need to see executives that are owners. If that were the case, you could forego those records that we have only a manager present for, or those records that, wouldn't have that ownership listed. You can forego all those and just get to those owners that you need. Otherwise, just like with company name, we'll always give you this information where we have that available. Keyword search is generally the way people search the database, probably the most. And it simply means putting a check mark next to there and then using this informational box to select what it is you want to see. Do you want to go to restaurants, coffee shops, physicians? What is it that you need to see? And then you search for that. I'll show you this example in just a second. I do want to show you this major industry group This is the SIC codes, almost like they're on steroids, right? So when Uncle Sam was managing the SIC codes, at longest, they were a 4-digit code. We've made it a bit more granular, as you'll see. So when I open up under construction these three, it gives me that definition for each of those three codes. If I wanted to pursue or go down this path as it relates to general contractors, I can select that and it gives me this definition. And this was the extent of the granularity that you could get using the old SIC codes. That was it. We added 2 additional codes to make it that much more granular. So if you only, for example, wanted to see those businesses that say do fire damage restoration work, you could drive in just those kinds of businesses. Because if you select it at this level, it's going to grab all of those. See the difference? So if this were what was important to me, I could select that. I could even take it a step further and say to the system or direct the system to only give me those businesses that's their primary line of business, which I will throw out a hint, that question that we have definitely refers to primary SIC code only. So I'll come back to that here in a second. So no, you could use the major industry group versus the keyword search if you'd like, or in tandem, just not looking for the same business, right? Business type. Geography kind of speaks for itself. I will show you this map-based search tool. Phone speaks for itself. Number of employees, maybe size is important to you. You don't want to work perhaps with or get information about businesses that are perhaps real small. Maybe you want businesses that are of a certain size. You could drive in those records as well. Or if sales volume was important, you could drive in those businesses by sales volume. And I mentioned that 72% of the businesses give us that exact number. Those that don't will apply a range. With regards to the sales volume, we learned a long time ago, you don't ask a small business how much money they're making and not have that call perhaps end quickly, right? So we will use a algorithm. We have a team here in Omaha that produces that algorithm, and they use information like number of employees, like line of business. So what kind of business does that business do? How long have they been in business? Where are they physically in business at? Because there are many variables that we have to consider there. Everything from leasing costs to payroll costs to benefit costs to power and light costs, all those variables that you would need to consider as it relates to businesses in one community versus perhaps another. So we take all of that into consideration, and we also get some information through the Bureau of Labor and Statistics in order to be able to produce that algorithm that then produces that modeled number. So it's always modeled unless it's a publicly traded company. Then we're capturing that sales information from their 10K report. So private company modeled. And the same thing would be true for business expenditures. We model those as well. Public-private, you could certainly use that as a filter by which to see only certain kinds of records. Maybe as it relates to headquarters, you only want to see those companies with a headquarters in this community. You could certainly drive in records like that. Or conversely, maybe you want to see single location records. Just depends on how you want to see that. We'll always provide this information regarding financial data where we have that available. Special selections. I do like to point out years in the database versus year established, because if we've not been able to get that year established information from the company, it's going to be blank, right? But we know how long we've had them in our database. So you can use that And you could say, hey, show me those businesses that are relatively new to my community. And you could be doing it by type of business. Maybe you need to see records for companies that have been around for a while. So you could start at this 10 years and even get to 15 or more years. So again, depending on how you could use that or want to use that. Professionals, all or one. So we added this particular option for you, the end user. If you're going to be making mailing labels and you know in that geography that you're going to be pulling up that there might be attorneys, doctors, CPAs. If you only wanted one record for that attorney's office, you could choose one professional versus all. That means you're going to have ultimately fewer records. And when you go to do your mailing, it will have helped you then save some of those costs associated with that mailing. So note that you could do that with professionals. And then we give you a variety of ways that you can omit information, including previously saved searches. So if it were important to you, I mentioned in Omaha, for example, that we have those ATM machines. Not that I don't like them, but I'm not going to call on an ATM machine. So if I'm doing a geography selection that's kind of a general selection, and I'm just looking at businesses in that area, if I didn't want those ATM machines to show up, I could search for that. There's the SIC code and that description for automated tellers. Then I just click on it. I add that to my selected field. And as long as I've left this in play, I'll never get ATM records included in my output. So let's do this. Let's imagine that, and I like to use restaurants because it gives me enough numbers. I need some higher numbers. Let's go with restaurants, and we're going to search for that. And remember, this could be any industry: manufacturing, construction, retail services. You get to name what you want to see. I'm going to look at all restaurants. I selected it. It's been added down here. I could be adding other information. If I wanted to pull up hotels, I could make that a driver as well, and then get hotels and restaurants. Just depends on what I want. I'll stick with the restaurants, and then it's a matter of selecting my geography, right? So let's do this. Let's do York County. Of course, I've got to get down here to Oklahoma and then Tulsa. And you can start to key this in. As you can see, it will then start to type ahead, and you can select the one that you need. And I want to point out, so we've got these verified records. We also have unverifieds. We'll call these businesses annually and verify that information with them. If in fact we're not able to reach a business, we will try for a dozen attempts throughout the course of 2 years to keep that a verified record. If after that point in time we've not seen anything that would lead us to believe that they're closed, we haven't seen anything online. That's been a question of late, especially with businesses closing because of the pandemic, right? There is no grand disillusionment center where businesses report closure. In some cases, they just close the door. That's it. So we're certainly in the same kind of boat, if you will, as it relates to being able to get that information verified. So we will certainly deploy processes by which to look at websites to see if there's closure, those types of things. But if we can't reach them or learn that they've closed, we place them under the unverified businesses. So in this case, I'm just looking at verified businesses, and I'm looking at all SIC codes. I will give you another hint. in that question, it refers to primary. So notice, this is the number of restaurants that I have in total across the county, 1,601. If I switch this up to primary only, watch what happens to my total. So it drops it down to 1335. So with that in mind, we got rid of businesses like bowling alleys that have a little restaurant in them, or the corner convenience store that has a few tables up, and they call that, Pete's Restaurant. Their primary line of business is a convenience store or a bowling alley. If we're looking at just those businesses that their primary line of business is that of a restaurant, I've got them at 1,335. Let's view those results. And right off the bat, I'm going to show you this charts again, because you might be interested in being able to chart information from this perspective as well. And I can do that. So since I'm only looking at one SIC code, it takes that off the plate, if you will, and it gives me the look from the city perspective. So across your county, these cities are listed there with those number of records. Of course, if you scroll down, you've got that full list. And I can switch this up like we did before with employment size. I helped a lady I used to cover the state of Florida, and she was selling a product for a company, and she had the entire state of Florida as her customer base for this product. She was not allowed to sell to large chains. So the Applebee's, the McDonald's, the Burger Kings, she couldn't sell to any of them. There was someone else that had that as their territory. She could only sell to the mom and pops. So guess which ones she was interested in? She was interested in this audience, and even inclusive of this audience. And we also threw in some sales ranges to keep that in that range that she thought would be a good range. What she was going to do is she was going to show this report to her boss to let her boss know what she was working on. And she was looking at it from the county perspective as well. They're in Orange County, Florida, in the Orlando area. So lots of different ways that you might consider the use of the database. I know that lenders love this kind of insight as well. I can always get back to my results, and we do have this other incredible tool. It's our heat map. It's a density map. You can select it, and then what it will do is overlay the area on the map and give you a look at it from that density perspective. So when I say density, I'm talking about these red areas. There are lots of restaurants there where it's more yellow, or on those fringes where it's yellow. Fewer restaurants located there, green even less. And of course, if there isn't any color, then there aren't any restaurants in there. Here's a spot right in the middle there that there aren't any restaurants. So you get that kind of perspective. We also give you this top 50 tally result by zip code. And as you'll note here, it does state that if you change the zoom to on this map to where it's 300 or fewer records, this is what you'll get. So pay particular attention to this column. When I start to drill in, and I'm going to drill in again, it might take me 2 or 3 clicks and give it time to process. In this case, it's going to take 4, but I'm feeling it's coming now. There it is, right there. So it pinpoints those locations. It gives you this left-hand column with the listing for all those restaurants. I have where there's a plus symbol, it simply means that there's more than one location at that spot. So as it notes there, there are 2 there. I can scroll through this information. If I needed to know where this Freeway Cafe was at, I understand they make great blueberry pancakes. I could click on that and it'll take me to that location. So it just depends on what I need. So know that that's something that you can use. And all of this information, just like with the charts, it can all be printed off or made part of a PowerPoint presentation as well. And when I say lenders love this, I have done so many presentations with loan officers present because they use the database to also mine or look for business opportunities. They like this perspective because it gives them some additional insight into what your approach is going to be to grow your business or to increase your sales. So know that that is available. And this is the charts tool and the heat map are available in most of the modules. I can think, well, the jobs and internships would not have that, and neither would the healthcare. Otherwise, every other module is going to have that available. I'm going to revise. Well, I do want to show you. Notice down here at the bottom, it says that you can download information. And think of this 250 as a batch. So you can do as many batches as you'd like in groups of 250 at a time. So whether you want to download that or print that, the easiest way to do that is simply put a check mark next to company name in this empty box, put a check mark there, and then go up to this number page toggle box and click to the right. It'll advance to then page 2, page 3. There's 25 records per page. So there are, in fact, 10 pages that you could download at a time. So I'm almost there. I'm 2 pages away, and I'm not the quickest clicker. So you'd want to stop on page 10. That's 250 results. Then you simply select the download option. Comma delimited is definitely where you want to leave it if you are going to make mailing labels. This is mailing label friendly. Still drops it into a form of Excel. The summary would include the name of the business, address, phone, as well as information like the owner or manager, what their name and title is, number of employees, sales volume, line of business. All of that would be delivered to you in this Excel document. And mind you, my Excel document here, this is static. I can't add anything to this. I can adjust these cells, but that's about it. So if you would like to save one spreadsheet versus perhaps multiple because you wanted to download 1,000 records, so you knew that was going to be 200, that's going to be 4 attempts or 4 downloads, right? So if you want to save those 4 separate Excel documents, I would simply come up here to the upper left-hand corner and select that, copy it, open up your own version of Excel, and drop it on there. Once you've done that, you would minimize yours, come back here, close mine. It leaves you back here on this instructional page. You simply select the word back, leaves you off on page 10. There's all those check marks. Now I've got to get rid of those. Easiest way to do that instead of page by page is revise search. Then view your results. Bingo, all those check marks are gone. You're left on page 1, and then you just have to remember, now what page did I leave off on? That would have been 11. And you're ready to go with more downloads. So if there were something that you wanted to get out to this universe, you could certainly do so. Maybe you intend on calling these businesses. Maybe this is your sales sheet. I always know when I have a new person that's been introduced to the database that calls in for assistance because they're so excited that they've learned about this and they think, gosh, I should download this entire universe. It's not going anywhere. You can download whatever you could work in a month's time and then come back and get more. So I always let them know that, and they're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? So know that you can take as many records out as you need, but you may not necessarily need to take out everything all at once. And remember, you can always save it. You could always create that personal account and save this and come back to it at any point in time. So certainly that is, in fact, I'm going to revise this search because I want to get rid of those check marks before I make a mistake. And I also want to show you this. Let's go over here to page 2 because I happen to see that you all have Arby's like we have. The corporate tree information. This could be valuable data. You know, if you were going to reach out to Arby's to try and sell them something, first of all, you'd probably want to be able to sell to all Arby's, right? Well, if that's the case, why wouldn't you want to know about this corporate structure? So the up arrow will take you to one record, and that would be the subsidiary. If in fact you want to see the entire organizational chart, which I definitely would, select that option. That flow chart is going to show you everything. So Arby's is actually owned by this private equity firm out of Atlanta, Georgia. Notice they have some 42 subsidiaries. Now I'm seeing only one right now with some 39, almost 40,000 branches across the US. There is a legend that runs across the top here. So if you wanted to know what this PV stood for, quickly you can identify that that's a private company. If there's a subsidiary of the foreign parent, we do not go overseas to the parent. We stop at the subsidiary here in the US. I had somebody that called me about Saks Fifth Avenue, a Saks Fifth Avenue record, and they wanted to know why I wasn't showing the information for Hudson Bay Company. Well, Hudson Bay Company is in Canada. So that's why it didn't go over. In this case, it didn't have to go overseas, just had to go a little bit over. But you get the idea. It has to be in the US. Even though Hudson Bay is owned by, I should mention that, even though Hudson Bay is owned by a US company, that subsidiary is what blocked that connection. So I have this information. If I want to get to these other subsidiaries, close this, and there they all are. And I am sure as you look at this list that you recognize a lot of these businesses. Dunkin' Brands, they just brought in, when I say they, Rourke Capital Group just acquired Dunkin' Brands. So they're part of their subsidiary. So incredible information. And why wouldn't you want to know about these Hardee's? For goodness sakes, if you were going to sell something to Arby's, I would want to sell probably that same thing to Hardee's, so I can get to all of that Hardee's information. Just depends on how you want to frame it. And I got to all of this information by simply clicking on this corporate tree structure here. Let's open this Arby's record. This could be any record, right? This could be that contractor. This could be that manufacturer. Well, they do manufacture sandwiches. But you get the idea. It can be any business here in the United States. We want all businesses listed in our database. So we're going to capture as many of them as we can. So I've got that location information, some information as far as that website and the links, the social links that they use. I can get to that corporate tree information here. I have every one of our records is going to have this job listings. So there are some job listings there. I have the industry profile. There's that SIC code that brought in all those restaurants. So that's fine dining as well as fast food. have a business profile here. Now, not every single business is going to have a business profile. You know, Bob's Garage down the street, he works on lawnmower motors. We don't have a business profile for Bob. If they asked me to write one for him, I would gladly do that, but we won't have one for Bob's. I have Google Maps embedded in here. So if you're accustomed to using a GPS, you know well how that works. And I would say thank you for being a customer, because we work with a number of the GPS manufacturers, including Toyota and Lexus for their in-car nav systems. So look at this. Here's my business demographics. They have 15 employees, and they just told us that this month. So we'll update them again in March of 22. So when we called, they told us they had 15 employees. That number goes into this location sales volume information because it's a private company, right? Now, some of these larger firms may divulge that information, and those that do, we would grab that, but most do not. They don't need to, right? It's not a requirement. We have those hours of operation, that management directory. So I showed you if you wanted owners, same thing could be true. Maybe you only want those businesses that would have a manager listed. You could do that. Company name, or excuse me, company news. This is being updated every day. Could be multiple times in a day. So, gosh, if I'm not mistaken, today's the 11th, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 updates just today. So, and as you'll note, you can even go back further in time and read older articles. Just depends on what you would like. Stock data, of course, there isn't any because it's a private company. There's some business expenditures. Again, that's that modeled information. I always tell folks that are entrepreneurs that are looking to model themselves after a business or 2 or 3 or 4, take this information, find the halfway point, that median point in between the 1,000 and the 2,500, then add up all those categories that apply, because maybe they don't all apply. Add up those categories that apply, then divide that by 12, and you would have a good sense of what your monthly expenses might be as it relates to those categories that you did choose to add up. Some business or some historical information, including historical records. And I would point out, notice this goes back as far as 2003. So if I wanted to, I could open up this 2011 record, just click on the name, and it will open up that year 2011. It hyperlinks you right into the U.S. Historical Businesses database, and it shows you on the slide that that's where you're at. And the reason I mention that is, notice we actually have some additional years listed here. So the system is set to go back as far as 1997. That's when we started capturing this historical perspective. So you can use this slide and you can go back in time or come up to, as it relates to 20. Just depends on what you need to do. I can always get back to my original list, and then I have 3 other sections. Ucc Filings. So if they took out a loan and put something up as collateral, that information would be in this report. In this case, they haven't any. Nearby businesses, because we have that latitude and longitude embedded in the background. I was looking to see if there might be one of those ATMs there, but there isn't. And then, of course, competitors. So I'll always have that list of competitors based on the SIC codes. And I could open up any of these. If I wanted to get into this Mexican grill, I could open up that record and get right to that particular location as well in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. So know you can do anything inside of a record as well. I do want to point out this data feedback. I'll do it up at the top of the page. Any of our records can be updated. So let's pretend for a moment that you know Jade and that you were having a conversation and you were told that there were 20 employees here. You could tell us about that and we'll call them and update it. Now, we're not going to use your name. You can simply come in here, notes, you'll send that through to these researchers. You just put a check mark next to the box for the item or items that are needing to be updated. So if it were number of employees, bingo, right there, just fill out that information. So if it were 20, you'd put that in there. You'd fill out this information, submit this to us. We'll send you a response back immediately that we received your query, and then we'll send you back the resolution of what happened with our contact with that business about updating this. Maybe they come back and say, no, we have 19. Okay, so we're going to change it to 19. So no, anything can be updated. And I want to show you this tool as well. So I'll throw in a couple of other items here. I'll say web addresses and I'll say ranges as well. I'll do that 1 to 4 and 5 to 9. What the heck? And instead of doing the county, I'm going to remove that and I'm going to use this tool. This tool is available in many of our modules as well. If you don't see it, it's not that it's broken, it's just not available. So once you've selected those items on this left-hand column that need to be captured or need to be part of the flow of your information, open up your map. The system will come up with this view of the United States. Now you have to tell it where to go. So let's just go to Tulsa and go. And it takes me to Tulsa. Now I have these tools. I can draw my own shape. I can use a true radius. I can use a predetermined boundary selection. I can even do a drive route. With draw a shape, it's as simple as this. You start wherever you want with a single click. And then you take it in whatever direction you want to go, and it's a single click to change direction. And if then a single click to change direction again. And if this were the shape you wanted, you could double click it, finish it, and there are 77 results in that particular shape that match your criteria. You would just say done, and as you can see, I'm ready to give you those 77 records. So you have that available. You can do true radius. Both the shape, draw a shape, and the radius will only go out 150 miles. That's a long way, but I just wanted you to know that there is a max. So when you click on the define radius and begin to pull it away, it will calculate how far out you've gone. So there's just a little over a mile. I'm going to stop at 2 miles here, or a little over. So in that 2 miles, I have 104 results that match my criteria. If that's all I need, done, and I'm ready to go. But in this case, I'm not quite done. In fact, I'm going to delete that. And here are the boundary selections. Ooh, I better back out just a little bit, though. There it is. Come back here. Tulsa, you stay in the middle. Here are my boundary selects. It always starts as large as the state. You could get as narrow as a neighborhood or even a postal carrier route. Here are my area zip codes. So it will populate those zip codes. And with that, it's really easy to use. You just click in the zip code you're interested in. Maybe there's several that I'm interested in. Maybe I'm interested in these 3. It will calculate how many of those are in that particular area, and then I can get those records. If that's it, I say done and view my results, and I've got my 54 results. So very easy to use. Granted, I've been doing it for a while, so feel free to get in there and manipulate the data. The biggest thing I believe to remember is the more filters you apply, the tighter the funnel becomes the fewer records you're going to get. But you can put in any keyword, maybe it's veterinarians, hint, hint, nod, nod, wink, wink, with a primary SIC, who knows? In whatever geography you want to do, you could get those results. Quickly, any questions, because we are going to need to conclude here quickly, and I want to make certain that I answer any questions, and I want to show you one more module real quick. Questions?
No questions.
No
Bill.
questions. I'm going to click on Reference Solutions. That's my home key. I'm back here at the home page. I also want to show you the consumer lifestyles information. This can be great data. We're getting this from surveys that people have completed, magazine subscriptions they're having sent to their home, warranty cards that they've submitted, memberships that they've joined. I used to not be in the database when I first moved in back into Omaha, and I became known as a dog lover because I signed up for a Petco PALS card, and I was then identified as a dog lover.
Bill, excuse me, we got a question about email addresses.
Oh, sure.
With regard to the business file, I'm assuming probably. But
yes. With regards to email addresses, whenever you see account given to you, there is a more information tab that you can click on, and it's going to direct you to contact our office. The emails aren't in the records themselves. You can imagine that with all the libraries across the United States that have access to our database, if we made all these businesses' emails addresses available with no filters at all, then those email addresses would be worthless overnight. So we do sell those. You can buy them two different ways. Either the emails themselves and just walk away and do your email campaign. And there is a minimum, I want to say it's 500 email addresses with the US Business Database. If in fact you'd like us to do the email campaign for you, of course we can do that. And that's a lesser expensive option than buying the email addresses. So know that you could certainly use either of those. Let's do this. Let's look under lifestyles at those dog lovers. So I can come down here through my lifestyle categories. So these are all the categories. Maybe you have a business and you have a fitness facility and you want to identify those people that are into health, diet, and fitness. You could certainly do that. If you're looking for those dog lovers, you can do that, or horse lovers, or maybe hamster lovers. You could certainly do that. So if I wanted dog lovers and I wanted just one record per household, I can come up here, and if I wanted to search the entire city, I can put in the name of the city, go, and then it gives me Tulsa, Oklahoma. I can select that, add that. I could be continuing to add other cities here. Just depends on how I want to do it. And notice there is a scoring system behind the scenes. It's 0 through 9. We will only show you results of people who score a 6 or higher. So they have to be active in that category. So I have a total of 7,769 records for dog lovers. And you can view that information. There's my information. So Linda Hamilton, I don't think she's the actress. I can click on that information. It gives me that residential information, everything. Now, we're not call verifying this, but everything that we've seen, it appears as she's single. Been in this home for about 5 years. There's that neighborhood information through the Census Bureau, and then we make some adjustments to that. And there are the lifestyle indicators. So the reason this record came in is because she's a dog lover. That's the only reason. We could go back and do another search for gardening people. She may not show up because she's not active enough in that category. Even though she has some interest in it, got to be able to fall in that 6 to 9 range. And I would show you this. I helped a lady in Scottsdale do this. She was doing a project on behalf of AKC. They were holding a dog event and they were looking for some sponsorship from people in the community. So she had learned from the librarian about the dogs, but she didn't consider the charitable donors. Well, what better audience to support that initiative than those people who are also perhaps charitable donors? So you could identify that. And notice if I just add those two together, I have a total of 34,000, almost 35,000 people. But if I choose more options and look at this from the standpoint of all those that match, in other words, these two, I have now a total of 5,707 records. So she wanted to be able to add some estimated incomes because she didn't want to reach out to people that perhaps couldn't afford their sponsorship, right? So it was a matter of selecting some ranges here. So she started at 100,000, and if I remember right, she went up to like 300,000. So what does that do to my number? Drops it down to 1,084, but they weren't going to do 1,084 mailings. So she started carving off some of these ranges. So what does that do? 673. So you can see how that brings it down. What does that do? 410. So if that were the universe that you wanted to get to, then go on there. Now, I would point out, it does note that any of these records that may have a telephone number, they may be on the do not call list and shouldn't be phoned. You are certainly responsible for that compliance. However, there's a fee involved, but we can give you a clean list to call. Or you could make your list from here and send it to the do not call registry. They would also charge, but they could then send you a clean list that you could then call upon. So know that that is available in the database. And we give you access to all of these modules. I have a cousin, my nephew in Denver, Colorado. He uses this US healthcare one to identify those doctor's offices that he wants to market his services to. He has a transcription business. So he uses that US healthcare along with the US business to identify sheriff's departments that also do a lot of that type of work. So lots of different ways to use the database depending on who your ultimate customer would be. Any questions? Because I know we're actually slightly over the hour.
Bill, we had a question really relates to the business segment about access or finding nonprofits.
Oh, absolutely. So just like any other business, every business has an SIC code. So churches have SIC codes, government offices have SIC codes, and certainly, there it opened up. If I go to keyword search, thank you, and just put in my nonprofits, I can search for those and get that information. And if that's the case, then I can add that nonprofit organizations and then whatever geography I'm going to use. So the answer is yes, you have access to that. Other questions? Great question.
That's all we've got up to this point, Bill.
Okay.
Wait, just a minute here. Let me make sure. Okay. Yeah, we're okay.
We're okay. Well, you know what? If you've taken down my email address, because you're going to answer that question, you can always feel free to reach out to me with any other kind of question, or you contact Martha. Martha would be happy to help you. So would Jennifer.
Thanks,
Martha,
Bill.
do you want to let me do this? I do want to point out how to get to the reference solutions database. So when you come into the library's website, I bet you I'm not on the homepage, am I? There I am. So when you come into the library's website, which is the tulsalibrary.org, and Martha, it's under research, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I only did this an hour and a half ago. And then when you scroll down, oh, I know, it's right here, databases. My bad. Right here, click there, and then it gives you the alphabet. You just click on the R, and there is Reference USA Now Data Axle Reference Solutions. When you click on that, it will ask you to input your library card information. And as soon as you hit enter, of course, you're going to see this familiar page with your library's logo.
Thanks, Bill. We also have it on our database list under D for Data Axle. So either way.
Oh, okay. Well, there's twice as many ways to get there.
Thanks, Bill. Wonderful, wonderful tour of these amazing business resources. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you would like help using the library's databases or any of our other resources, you can schedule a virtual appointment with the Research Center staff. And to do that, you can just you can call the library at 918-549-7323 and tell them you want to schedule an appointment to learn about any of our databases. And you can also visit the tulsalibrary.org website and click on Ask Us and send in an email. So either way, I wanted to thank Bill for joining us, and be sure to invite you to return with us next Thursday for crafting the perfect customer profile. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Martha.